My name is Elise. I'm 39. And lately, I feel like I've become a ghost in my own life. This isn't the kind of thing you're supposed to say out loud, especially not when everyone thinks you have it good. A handsome husband. A lake house we rebuilt together. A ready-made family. But here I am, sitting in the bathroom with the door locked, whispering into silence like it's the only thing that listens. I've never said this before, not even to myself in full, but ever since my stepson looked at me last week and said, "You're all mine when Dad's not around," I haven't been able to breathe the same. He said it with a smirk, like it was a joke, like boys do when they're flexing a little too hard on the edge of manhood. He's 18, old enough to know better, young enough to still push boundaries. But the way he said it, with that long look, it made me feel something I don't want to name. Not because of him. Because of what I felt missing from my marriage in that exact moment. It's not like I didn't used to love Mark. God, I did. With everything. When we met, I was 32 and exhausted by dating men who couldn't sit with me in silence without fidgeting. Mark was different. He was steady. He listened. He kissed the inside of my wrist like it meant something. The first time we made love, he pulled me close afterward and whispered, "You're safe now." I cried, not out of sadness, but relief. Back then, we had something. Passion, yes, but more than that, a rhythm. A way we looked at each other across the room and just knew. A shorthand that only people who've lived through some things understand. But somewhere in the routine of life, blended family dinners, early commutes, and tax deadlines, that rhythm started stuttering. I remember about a year ago, I leaned over the kitchen counter and kissed him while he was chopping bell peppers. Just something soft and playful. And he kissed me back, but his lips barely moved. His eyes stayed on the cutting board. "Busy," he said, almost absently, before nudging the cutting board toward me. That moment, tiny, forgettable to anyone else, lodged itself in my chest like a splinter. Lately, every kiss feels like that. Like an afterthought. Like something he does because he should, not because he wants to. He still puts his hand on my lower back when we walk through doors. Still makes my tea just the way I like it. But there's a mechanical feel to it all now. No heat. No pull. We cuddle sometimes. Or we try. But it always ends in awkward shifting, like neither of us can get comfortable. His hand will rest on my hip, and instead of melting into him, I feel inspected. Then eventually, he'll pull away and mutter something about needing to get up early. Last week, he hugged me from behind while I was folding towels. A gesture that used to make me smile without fail. But this time it felt like pressure. Like a weight dropped onto my spine instead of a warmth wrapping around it. I stood there, frozen, holding a towel I couldn't seem to finish folding. And then, a few days later, his son, Tyler, walked into the kitchen where I was alone. Mark was still outside fixing the grill. Tyler leaned against the fridge, shirtless after a swim. He's got that teenage arrogance, the kind that dares the world to look at him the way he already looks at himself. I turned to tell him dinner would be ready soon, and that's when he said it, with a half smile and a tilt of his head that made something twist in my gut, "You're all mine when Dad's not around." He laughed after. Like it was a joke. But I didn't laugh. I couldn't. Because it was in that exact moment that I realized. Mark doesn't look at me like that anymore. Doesn't see me anymore. And maybe worse, I'm starting to forget how it felt to be seen. I wish I could say I brought it up right away, that I told Mark what Tyler said, or how it landed. But I didn't. It wasn't just awkwardness. It was the fear that he wouldn't hear me. That he'd laugh it off the same way Tyler did. That he'd see it as nothing. And I didn't want to feel that kind of alone, not again. So instead, I said nothing. And it festered. That weekend, Mark planned a date night, his way of trying to keep our marriage from sinking into the swamp of middle-aged routine. He ordered Thai from the place we used to go in the city, set up a table out on the dock, even lit citronella candles like we were trying to chase off more than just mosquitoes. He looked handsome in that navy button-down I once told him brought out his eyes. He was trying. God, he really was. But when he leaned across the table to kiss me, mid-bite, curry still on my tongue, I flinched. Just slightly. Just enough for him to notice. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, smiling too quickly. "Just spicy." He smiled back, but his eyes didn't fully buy it. Later, we sat side by side on the dock, watching the water go dark. Mark put his arm around me, fingers rubbing soft circles on my upper arm, the kind of touch that used to make me lean into him. Now, it just made me ache. Not because it wasn't tender, but because it felt like a shortcut. Like he thought if he touched me enough, I'd open back up. But I needed more than hands. I needed him to ask. To notice. To not keep pretending that everything between us was still effortless. "You've been quiet lately," he said finally. "I've just been tired," I lied. Again. And then, like clockwork, his hand slid lower, pulling me in closer. He kissed the side of my neck, warm, deliberate. Familiar. "I miss this," he whispered. I turned toward him, but my body hesitated. I wasn't ready to be that close. Not without a conversation. Not without being seen. "I know," I said. Can we slow down?" He pulled back. Not angry. Just confused. "We never get time alone anymore, Elise." "I'm trying." "I know you are," I said, guilt clawing up my throat. "It's not that." But he was already shutting down. His shoulders stiffened. He stood up and brushed off his jeans. "You want me to stop trying?" That's not what I said. But he wasn't hearing me. He never does, not when it matters. "I'm just saying I need to feel like we're us again before we try to be physical." "You think I don't?" he snapped. Silence fell between us. Heavy. Final. He walked back toward the house, barefoot on the dock, and left me there, watching his back recede in the dark. And the worst part? I didn't go after him. Because in that moment, I couldn't tell if I missed him. Or just missed the version of me I used to be when we were good. The next day, I caught Tyler watching me again. I was unloading groceries, trying to shake off the emotional hangover from the night before. He leaned against the doorway like he owned the air around him. There was something too casual in the way he looked at me, like he knew something he shouldn't. Like he felt something he had no right to. "You okay?" he asked. "Fine," I said sharply. He smirked again. That same look. That same line, still all mine when Dad's not around? Except this time, he didn't laugh. He just looked at me, waiting. And I froze. Not because I didn't know what to say. But because something in me wondered what would happen if I didn't shut it down right away. And that scared the hell out of me. Sunday morning used to be my favorite part of the week. Mark would get up first, make coffee, and bring me a mug in bed before I even stirred. It was one of those small gestures that once made me feel cherished, like he still saw me beneath the laundry piles and the grocery lists. This morning, the mug was still warm when he handed it to me. But instead of curling up beside me like he used to, he stood by the edge of the bed and looked at me like he wanted something. "Elise," he said softly, sitting down and reaching to tuck a strand of hair behind my ear. "You're beautiful like this. Every morning." Still. I gave him a weak smile. "Thanks." He leaned in and kissed me, slow, familiar, and a little longer than usual. I didn't pull away, but something in me went stiff, like I was bracing for something. His hand found my thigh beneath the covers. And that's when it happened, that little internal recoil. That breath I held without meaning to. That slight, imperceptible clench. He didn't say anything. But he felt it. He always feels it now. I tried to soften. Forced my hand to rest on his chest, tried to will myself to remember how this used to feel. How he used to feel. But it was like trying to recreate a dream after waking. You can remember the outline, but not the feeling. He pulled back, searching my face. What's going on with us? I swallowed hard. I don't know. You always pull away now. You used to want this. Us. Me. I still do, I lied. His brow tightened. So what changed? I looked at him, and for a second, I almost said it. That I feel invisible. That he doesn't see me anymore unless he wants something from me. That it feels like every kiss, every hug, is just another on-ramp to sex, and I'm not even sure where we're headed anymore. But instead I said, I'm just tired. Work's been a lot. Mark sighed and ran a hand through his hair. That's what you always say now. You're tired. You're distant. I try to show you I love you, but it's like you don't even want me anymore. I wanted to scream, it's not that I don't want you, I just want to be wanted for more than what my body can give. Instead, I just looked down at my coffee, now lukewarm. He reached for me again, his palm brushing the curve of my hip under the blanket. Come here. Let's just be close. It should have been sweet. It used to be. But all I felt was pressure. That familiar, unspoken expectation. I hesitated too long. His hand slid back, and I heard the edge in his voice, right. Tired again. He got up, walked to the bathroom, and shut the door too hard. I sat there alone, the mug trembling slightly in my hand, a knot forming in my stomach that had nothing to do with caffeine. I hated myself for pushing him away. But more than that, I hated how seen I had felt the other day, for a fraction of a second, when Tyler made that awful, stupid comment. Not because I wanted him. But because he looked at me like I mattered. Like I existed. I pressed my lips together and stared at the ceiling, trying to breathe through the guilt, the resentment, the numbness. And in the stillness of the room, one thought circled my head like a vulture: why does everything have to turn into sex? It happened over grilled chicken and roasted carrots. The most ordinary Tuesday night you could imagine. Mark had insisted on cooking. He poured us each a glass of wine and lit a candle like he was trying to summon the version of us that used to laugh over burnt toast and call takeout foreplay. Tyler was out at a friend's, and we were alone, the kind of night we supposedly never had enough of. This is nice, Mark said, sitting across from me with that hopeful glint I used to love. Just us. I smiled, barely. I was trying. God, I was trying. He reached across the table and touched my hand, gentle, soft. His thumb rubbed slow circles across my knuckles. I miss you, Elise. I really do. I nodded, swallowing around the knot in my throat. I know. I've been thinking, maybe we could go away for a weekend? Just us. No phones. No stress. He looked at me like he was offering a lifeline. I should have said yes. Should have grabbed that rope and let him pull me back in. But instead, the words tumbled out like poison. Do you even know me anymore? Mark blinked. What? I mean it, I said, setting my fork down too hard. Do you actually see me? Or do you just want me to smile, kiss you, and pretend nothing's wrong? He pulled his hand back. Where is this coming from? I laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. Where isn't it coming from? Every touch lately feels like a request. Every kiss feels like foreplay I didn't sign up for. He stared at me, stunned. You think I only want you for sex? I think you don't know how to reach me any other way. I felt the heat rising in my face, my chest tightening. You stopped being curious about me a long time ago, Mark. You just touch me and hope I'll snap back into the woman you married. He was quiet for a beat, then shook his head. That's not fair. I've been trying. You're the one who keeps pulling away. You won't talk. You won't let me in. Because when I do, you don't hear me. My voice cracked. I tell you I'm tired, and you touch my hip like that'll fix it. I say I feel off, and you try to make out with me. You want my body but never stop to ask how my heart is doing. He slammed his napkin on the table, the noise sharp and final. Jesus, Elise. You make it sound like I'm some kind of, what? Predator? Is it a crime to want my wife? And there it was, the shame. The way his voice dropped into disbelief. Like I'd betrayed something sacred. I stood up, shaking, and without meaning to, it spilled out, your son made me feel more seen than you have in months. His face froze. What? The room dropped into silence so thick I could hear my pulse pounding in my ears. I didn't mean, I started, but there was no good way to walk it back. What did he say? Mark's voice was quiet now. Controlled. Dangerous. I looked away. It doesn't matter. Elise. Tell me what the hell my son said to you. I bit the inside of my cheek, then finally whispered, he said, you're all mine when Dad's not around. And the worst part? It made me feel something. Not because of him. Because you don't see me like that anymore. Mark stood, the chair leg scraping hard against the floor. Are you accusing him of something? Or are you just using him to hurt me? I don't know, I said, voice barely audible. Maybe both. He walked out without another word. Just the sound of his footsteps fading down the hallway. A door slamming shut. And then I was alone. In the kitchen we picked tile 4. At the table he built with his hands. My hands were trembling. My chest tight. My cheek soaked before I even noticed I was crying. I slid down to the floor, back against the cupboard, and stared at the flickering candle between our untouched plates. I didn't know if I hated him. Or hated the woman I was becoming around him. But in that silence, one question echoed louder than the rest, what the hell is wrong with me? The days after the meltdown passed like a fog that never quite lifted. We moved around each other like ghosts, civil, muted, painfully careful. Dinners were quiet. Mornings quieter. No more soft kisses or warm coffee in bed. Just clinking dishes and the occasional, have you seen my keys? Mark stopped touching me altogether. At first, I felt relief. Then I felt the cold. And now I just feel hollow. One night, I found him asleep on the couch, still wearing his work shirt, the TV casting flickering shadows across his face. His hand was curled into a loose fist against his chest like he'd been holding something invisible in his sleep. I stood there a long time, just watching him breathe. He looked older. Not just tired, worn down. Frayed around the edges in a way I hadn't noticed before. And it hit me, this man, the one I've been so angry at, is hurting too. I used to be able to read him, to know what mood he was in by the way he buttered toast or cracked his knuckles. Now, I can't tell if he's angry or just done. He hasn't brought up what I said. Not the kitchen. Not Tyler. Not anything. And maybe that silence is louder than any fight we've had. Tyler, for his part, has been distant too. More polite. Less smirking. Maybe he feels it too, the shift, the weight. Or maybe he's just moved on to the next teenage power game. Either way, I avoid being alone with him. I don't trust my feelings right now. I don't even trust my judgment. Yesterday, I caught Mark sitting on the back steps with his head in his hands, staring out at the lake like it held answers. He didn't hear me come out. I almost said something. I almost touched his shoulder. But I stopped. Because I didn't know if I had the right to anymore. This distance, it's not just physical. It's a vacuum where all the little things used to live, the shared glances, the inside jokes, the unspoken "I got you" that once made us feel like a team. Now, I miss him the way you miss a place that's been torn down. But how do you reach for someone you've been pushing away for so long? I keep thinking about the last time we really laughed together. It was during a thunderstorm in June. The power had gone out, and we played cards by candlelight. I accused him of cheating at Go Fish and he kissed my cheek and said, "You love that I beat you." I did. I loved how playful we were. How light. Before all this heaviness crept in. Before the resentment. Before Tyler's words echoed into something neither of us can unhear. And now here we are. Two people with a history, a house, and a growing silence between them. I've been asking myself the same question over and over: can I find my way back to him? Or am I just trying to resuscitate something that's already gone? Tonight, I sat alone in our bedroom, staring at the edge of the bed where he used to reach for me in his sleep. My fingers hovered over my phone, no texts, no missed calls. Just the growing ache of absence. I miss him. Not just the man. The us we used to be. And maybe that's worth something. Maybe it's worth fighting for. Maybe I still believe in the version of us that laughed in candlelight. But I also know this: I can't be the only one reaching. And I can't go back to being half a person in a full relationship. So I made a choice. Tomorrow, I'll ask him if he wants to try again, really try. Not just with dinners and sex and silence, but with the messy, painful truth of where we are. And if he doesn't? Then I'll have my answer. I found him on the back deck again, this time watching the sun drop behind the trees. The sky was smeared in orange and purple, and for a moment, the silence between us didn't feel cruel. It just felt real. I stood in the doorway, heart pounding. "Can I sit?" Mark nodded, eyes still on the lake. He didn't move away when I lowered myself beside him, but he didn't reach for me either. "I've been thinking," I said softly. "About everything. About us." He exhaled, like he'd been holding his breath for days. "I never meant to hurt you," I added. That night. I didn't plan to say what I did. But it was honest. Maybe too honest. Mark looked down at his hands. "You said Tyler made you feel something I haven't in months." His voice cracked, not with anger, but something quieter. "I don't think I'll ever forget that." "I know," I said. "I wouldn't either." We sat in it. The honesty. The discomfort. Then, he turned to me. "You're right, though. I stopped really seeing you. I thought if I just kept showing up, touching you, doing what husbands are supposed to do, it would be enough. I didn't realize I was asking for something you didn't have to give anymore." I bit my lip, tears stinging at the corners. "I don't know how to get back to us." He nodded slowly. "I'm not sure there's an us to get back to." The words hit like glass breaking, not loud, but final. And yet, part of me already knew. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I still love you. I'll probably always love you in some way. But I think we stopped loving together a while ago." I reached over, just barely, and let my fingers rest on his arm. He didn't pull away. "I miss you," I whispered. He smiled sadly. "I miss me too. The version of me that lit you up." We didn't say goodbye. There was no speech. No final line. Just a long pause, and then, he leaned in and kissed me on the forehead. Slow. Gentle. reverent. Not romantic. Not hopeful. Just a goodbye without saying it. Later that night, I passed by the living room and saw him asleep on the couch again. One pillow, one blanket, curled on his side like a man learning how to live alone. I watched him for a second. No resentment left. Just grief. Quiet and clean. And then I turned off the light and walked upstairs. You know, when I was younger, I thought love was this loud, sweeping thing. Fireworks. Craving. Messy passion that made you forget who you were for a while. And maybe, in some ways, it is. But that's not the kind of love you build a life with. The kind you build with someone like Mark. That kind is quieter. Daily. It shows up in coffee cups and split grocery lists and shared calendars. It's deep. Reliable. But here's the thing no one tells you, love can be steady, and still leave you starving. We think if someone is kind, or decent, or present, that should be enough. That we should be enough. But desire doesn't always bloom in comfort. And intimacy? Emotional intimacy? That doesn't survive on routine. It dies in silence, in assumptions, in the spaces where we stop really asking each other who we are. That's what happened to me. I didn't wake up one day and stop loving Mark. It wasn't dramatic. It was slow, a kind of fading that's almost too quiet to notice until one day, you're lying next to someone and feeling lonelier than if you were actually alone. And when Tyler said what he said, it wasn't about the words. It wasn't about him. It was about what his eyes saw that Mark hadn't in months. It terrified me how much I craved being seen. Even if it came from the wrong place. I didn't cross a line. But I stood near it. And that alone showed me just how far I'd already drifted from the woman I used to be. That woman was joyful. Curious. Tender. She believed in being chosen, not out of habit, but out of hunger. Out of want. I miss her. And maybe that's what all this was really about. Not just my marriage. Not just the silence in our bed. But losing me. Piece by piece. Smile by smile. And now, here I am. Alone in the house we made a home. Mark's gone, he moved into a condo near the school where he teaches. We're polite. Civil, no lawyers yet. But I don't think either of us is pretending anymore. Tyler left for college last week. He hugged me awkwardly and said, "Take care of yourself." And for once, there was no smirk. Just a boy growing into something that isn't my responsibility anymore. The house is quieter now. But I've started playing music again, softly, in the mornings while I make tea. I light candles. I go on walks without checking the time. And I've started asking myself questions. What do I want? What makes me feel alive, connected, warm? What does intimacy look like without obligation? I don't have all the answers. But I know this, I want to be wanted for my mind before my body. I want to be kissed like a secret, not a routine. I want to sit across from someone who asks me who I am, now, not just who I was when they fell in love with me. And if I never get that again, at least now I know I deserve it. So, if you're sitting in silence next to someone who once set your soul on fire, listen to that silence. Don't ignore it. Don't wait for it to turn into something louder. Because by the time it does, you might be like me, trying to mourn something you never got the chance to save. And I don't say that to scare you. I say it because we're all just people trying to love without losing ourselves. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from a good man when the version of you he loves no longer exists.